Open up, Colorado. It's 420. Time to grind and burn.
This is not your son's stoner show.
Welcome back to the Cannabis Community Project. I am Brainstorm here in Denver, Colorado, bringing you your weekly podcast from the CCP studios. We're here exploring the business side of the newly emerging Colorado economy, focusing on the business, the patient, the retailer, to the geek in the garage, creating that next innovation in cannabis. This is the first media platform to help fellow cannabipreneurs build sustainable businesses while living the lifestyle. That's right, you heard me right. Sustainable businesses. This is a business show focusing on cannabis. This is not your son's stoner show. Do you have a business, an idea, or just some thoughts about cannabis? Contact me. I want to hear from you. If you go to the website, you'll see it right there on the contact information, as well as all of our social media contacts, Facebook, Kush Common, Google, all the others out there. Let's discuss the issues at the front of the industry. Everything from health to legal, food and art and music and growing and even technology. All of these issues are deeply rooted in the Cannabis Community Project. Hey cannabipreneurs, before we get started with today's show, I just want to mention one of our sponsors. Dairy Berry's recording studio, located in Arvada, Colorado, is your local recording studio with affordable rates and will make your music, your show, or any audio you have sound great. Take a look at dairyberriesrecordingstudio.com.
Doom daka doom daka doom doom doom.
Doom daka doom daka doom doom doom.
We got a great show lined up for you today. Today I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to not have a guest, and we're going to do just me, myself, and I. Because there's a couple issues we need to talk about and a couple news stories. In the last couple weeks, I didn't get to the news, and we had such extended interviews that the show was running long, that I wanted to take at least 1 week to catch up on that, make sure that we had at least a good 5 or 10 minutes to get back to some twin news. I also have an update of the patent troll campaign, the Adam Carolla patent troll that we're also participating in. We donated the other day, and I want to tell you all about it, because if you like this podcast, or if you're listening to this one, you're probably listening to others, and we need help out there. We're in trouble. Podcasters, if you're not aware of what's going on, there's this issue called the patent trolls that are out there suing podcasters, trying to extract money from them, which could really put an end to this industry just in the prime of it budding, of it getting ready to explode and become the next medium of media. But that could all come to a screeching halt if these patent trolls aren't stopped. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. I also have a Cannafessions this week. We had another person call in and leave a message at Cannafessions, so I want to make sure to get that on the air for you. And then we just have a couple side topics that we need to talk about, so everybody's on track of what the Cannabis Community Project is all about. Because I've been getting a couple questions and a couple comments and needing to clarify for a few people, what is it we're exactly doing here? Are we here talking about weed? Are we here indulging in marijuana? Are we smoking up the pot and figuring out which strains are the most potent and which war stories of how being high was ha ha ha? Not really. So if you're new to the show, this is a good one, because it's going to bring it all together and kind of explain everything and let you see what we're all about here. If you've been following us week to week, all I can do is say thank you. Thank you. I mean, you honestly have no idea what it means to 25 hours into producing a show every week to come up with, an hour, a little over an hour of content. That's right. Yeah, it takes almost 20 to 25 hours of manpower, resources, hours, labor, everything from interviewing to editing to producing to pulling music to getting it all lined up to master mixing it, writing out some of the segments, pulling together news stories. It goes a lot. I mean, honestly, it's coming out to about maybe a half hour to an hour for every minute we actually get down on the show. So when we have a 60-minute show, that doesn't mean we're putting 60 hours into it. I would say about half that, somewhere around 25, 30 hours. We're getting a little more efficient. I mean, when we first started, I think it took me almost 2.5 weeks to pull that first show together for that 60-minute first episode of the Grow Depot. And now I'm getting it down to about 4.5, 5 days, putting in a good 4 or 5 hours a day. After I come home from my job, that's right, this is not my full-time gig. There's only really 5 or 6 people out there that are really making money doing podcasting. And my intention is not to make money. I'm not here trying to produce a radio show to make a bunch of money. I'm here because, what's the expression? The love of the game. I would do this even if I had no sponsors. And that's how I started. I didn't start out thinking I need to get sponsors. I started out thinking I need to produce a show that I would listen to, a show my friends would listen to, a show that's based on something real and concrete, like starting businesses in this industry. And I knew if I did that and did that well, little by little, I would have sponsors coming in. And so far, all I can do is say big thank you, huge thank you to the few sponsors that we have now. Every show we mention them, HMO Plus, Growers, Growing Kits. We're going to get Grow Flounder back on here because he needs to tell you about this growing kit that he put together, as well as his seminars that he's traveling around the states doing growing seminars. Mark over at Dairy Berry's recording studio that does our master mixing every week, so we come across loud and clear. And then a couple of sub-sponsors that you can find on the website, True Diligence PI, background checks, any report, public report you need, from credit reports to driving records, criminal records, bank verifications. That's where you can get it, True Diligence PI. And then, of course, Tau Media, the company that I kind of founded a couple years ago, which is really the heart and soul of what we're doing here, because Tau Media is our podcast production studio. And if you're out there wondering, how did I get this podcast going? Well, I can tell you that. Matter of fact, you can hire Tau Media to step you through the process of how to get your own podcast, radio show, whatever you want to call it, an audio or even a video version, up on the web. Do you know what an RSS feed is? You have a web page? You have a blog? All these things seem basic, and I know we've heard them all before, but sometimes you just need a little bit of assistance to figure out, how do I get my WAV file, 800, 900 megabyte file, how do I get that actually to an MP3 where I can upload it to my media host? That's right, my media host, not my web page. What's the difference? Contact Tau Media and find out, and we'll get a podcast up and going for your business, or even just your personal whatever you got going on. You don't have to be a business to have a podcast. I mean, come on. This is 2014. Everybody should have a podcast. But sponsorship is one thing. The Cannabis Community Project is really about many things. We are a podcast, so we're in the media world. We're a broadcast about cannabis, so we're in the cannabis world. We're also entrepreneurs and business people, so we're in the business world. And then, on a personal note, I'm a musician, and most of my friends are artists and musicians, so we're also in that world. And we're bringing all those together, stitching them thread by thread, bringing them all together into what is known as the Cannabis Community Project. It's a project, and it's a project with the community of cannabis, not pot, not weed, not marijuana. If you've heard the show before, you know we only use cannabis around here. Marijuana is a racial slur that's very specifically designed to give us negative feelings. Pot, ganja, and all this other nonsense words out there people are using is only contributing to a lifestyle that is not very representative of the professional side of what's happening here in the industry. So if you want to be serious, you want to be a professional, you want to be in this industry, start using cannabis. Start educating other people what cannabis is all about. I'm going to tell you my personal story today since we have the time. And I've made that time to intentionally put the interviews on hold just for a week. So next week, don't worry, we'll be back with more people, interviewing them, from our artists to our patients to our business owners and everybody else. Don't worry about that. We're not taking away the interviews, because I believe that's the fundamental part of what we're doing here, is interacting with the community. But today, we're going to sit back, and it's just going to be me, myself, and I. and we're going to talk. So put in your earbuds, let's get personal, and let my words slither into your ear as I tell you about the origins and creation of the Cannabis Community Project. But first, as always, every week we have to look back at last week's show because there may be just a few people out there with some short-term memory. So this is our quick memory relapse flashback to last week's show, Prestige Lighting. Did you learn something about lighting? I did. I had no idea lighting was such an integral part of what we were doing. I mean, obviously I knew it was important and you had to have a light to grow and everything, but if you really think about anything else, when we're talking about the new world of growing, indoor lighting is where it's at. And indoor lighting is kind of controversial. I've been learning about this controversy over the last few weeks, but every time I talk to somebody, I'm realizing there's so much we don't know and so much we need to know to truly produce some great quality product here. So let's take a listen back to the Jasons, Jason Green and Jason Gray from Prestige Lighting, telling us a little bit about their story, how they got in business, where they're going with their business, and what we can learn from them about lighting. Let's take a listen.
Been friends ever since.
And then you got in business together?
Yep, we just started that, started the Prestige Lighting Solutions. We specialize in LED, but we also, like to do more customizable options for people.
Yeah.
We got a family, just trying to make it, Stumbled across this business venture and seen a good opportunity, to provide a better life for me and my family, and that's basically where I'm at right now. We want to do something that's clean and honest for everyone. I do it about just being around it a lot. I do know, like what Jason touched on over here, my partner, the heat of these high pressures. A lot of the controversy with the LED versus like a metal halide or a high pressure sodium is that LED doesn't really put out UV rays. And I'm not 100%, don't quote me on this, but I think that's what people are talking about when they're saying the PAR, possibly. Of course you want a lot of lumen.
1100 watt fixture, it's what it is, 1000 watt bulb plus 100 watts for the ballast. So it's 1100 watts, we're taking that down to 285 watts.
Oh, wow.
So, and it's the lumen output that they say about these 1000 watters are pretty high, but they have to use reflectors to actually capture that light and focus it towards the ground.
Meaning the bulb has a reflector over it.
Because we want to be able to help this industry out, because the need is going to be there. Like you said, not only the energy savings, but the actual overall heat of these grows is just, if we're cutting your energy by 70% just in lighting, we're probably going to cut your heating as well by 50+%. So your HVAC costs are just going to go straight, they're going to go down significantly. Treating solutions for your business or home. When it comes back to a study that they did on a lady reading a book in front of a CFL, like a lamp that was next to her, it was eating her face.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. It's scary sometimes to think, you start talking about that. It can get scary, but you need to have 5500 Kelvin LEDs in those display cases, because that will pop all your product. It'll pop everything that you're selling in there. It'll make shop look 100% different going with day white clear LED technology.
Excellent. Well, there you have it. Our short-term memory flashback to last week's show. If you didn't hear last week's show, go back to the webpage, www.cannabiscommunityproject.com, or go to any preferred media platform, iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, SoundCloud, even YouTube, and just look for Cannabis Community Project. And you'll find all the episodes up there. We have 10 of them. We're on show number 11, so you'll find 10 previous I wouldn't say masterpieces, but I put my heart and soul into those episodes. I did not wing those interviews, so go back and take a listen. Let's move on now to the well-known Twin News. We've been off for the last couple weeks on Twin News This Weekend News. And this week, we got a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on, and I want to make sure to hit some of the main points of news stories that come up. And then we need to finish off with probably the biggest I would think the biggest news story pending for us as podcasters and as a show right now, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Fund Anything campaign that Adam Carolla has going, fundanything.com/patent trolls. We're going to talk about patent trolls, what a patent troll is, how Adam Carolla's lawsuit could potentially trickle it down and affect us, little old us. Tiny Cannabis Community Project. I mean, over the last couple months that we've been doing the show, we've built our audience up to just a humble and meager audience of right around 200 people a week right now. For all of you 200 out there that have been listening and that are listening and they're coming back every week, thank you very much. It's much appreciated. Please communicate with me on Facebook or anything else. So I know beyond just numbers and analytics that you're out there, I can actually put a face and a voice to who you are. So thanks for listening. But if you want to keep listening, you're going to want to listen to our finishing news story about the patent trolls. So let's get into it and figure out what's going on this week in news. Here we go. First up, we have Cannabis Training University. Earn your CTU Master of Marijuana online certificate for only $99. That's right. Get a lifetime discount on all future courses and free entry into the Magical Butter Sweepstakes just by checking it out. Cannabis Training University is one of many, many universities that are popping up all over the place, giving people a training in the skill of growing and managing centers. And we're part of that community because we're also giving people training on how to be entrepreneurs and start up and get in business. So we're going to keep following stories like this, and this is pretty exciting. Let's move on to Show Me Cannabis. Senator McCaskill, if you know who that is, gives a startling quote. She says, if pot is legal, kids will get handed joints like they get handed beers. This is really highlighting the delusion of so many people and people that unfortunately have power to make the world a worse off place. Anyways, you can read more about that at Show Me Cannabis on Facebook. Let's move on to drug possession laws, sharing a photo, medical marijuana. On the left side, it's this simple dried herb is illegal, and it shows a picture of a smoking joint. However, on the right side of this photo, it states, if a multinational drug company grinds up that herb, extracts the cannabis sativa, and creates synthetic delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol oil, combines it with gelatin, gelatrine, iron oxide, red iron oxide, yellow, tantalum dioxide, markets it to doctors and hospitals under the name of Marlin, in the process makes a bunch of wealthy Wall Street investors even richer, then it's legal. I always like obvious points. Let's look at this one. Here's an interesting one. Drug possession laws posting Students for Sensible Drug Policy. It's a great organization doing the real work to organize people to end cannabis prohibition everywhere. They are international chapters across the U.S. and around the world. Give them a like and volunteer with your local chapter if you can. You can find out more about that at Students for Sensible Drug Policy, or posted by Drug Possession Laws, and of course on our Facebook. I always like to see younger kids get involved in activism because that just foreshows the future of what's going to happen. I mean, anytime you want to know what the future is going to be, just look at the present. Look at what we're doing right now, and that'll show you what we're setting ourselves up for the future. So if young people are starting to organize and wake up and realize, then I think we're pretty safe to know that in the future, we know what's going to happen. Let's move on to one posted by Cannabis Law Reform. You can watch a video on their Facebook of Russell Brand, if you're into that brand, and what he has to say about the highlights of the UN Drug Conference. Wise words. He's calling for a worldwide end of prohibition. Wise word, yes. Not very challenging, controversial. Very old, and I think we're almost tired of beating that drum of let's end drug prohibition. Let's stop talking about ending drug prohibition because that somehow implies that those who are enforcing these laws have the ability to give it back to us. What we need to do is kind of what we did here in Colorado. We need to organically, from a grassroots level, just start doing and make the laws happen ourselves. That's how Amendment 64 got on the books. That's how we changed the future of the world. And that's how we're going to, quote unquote, end drug prohibition. Stop asking for permission. Let's just start doing. Anyways, I don't want to get off on a rant about rants. Let's move on to a more simpler one. Cannabis Energy Drink International posting a photo of their new cannabis energy drink. But why not? You know, I've tried these drinks. They're not bad. They're pretty potent, some of them, if you're not used to it. But you can check that out, Cannabis Energy Drink International. And let's wrap it up with our main news story. If you haven't heard, there's a legal fund out there called fundanything.com/patent troll. And this legal fund is kind of being spearheaded by podcaster Adam Carolla. If you're not familiar with Adam Carolla, I don't know, over the last 20 so years, Loveline, The Man Show, Crank Yankers, and now has the Guinness Book of World Record as the most downloaded podcast ever. Up to this point. I think he still holds that record. But it's a daily podcast. You can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever, adamcarolla.com. And how this affects us, how this happens to be Cannabis Community Project news, is that we're basing our whole business model here on a radio show, a podcast technically. We're trying to do it like a radio show, but it's technically a podcast. And there's people out there, these patent trolls, that have bought up what they believe to be the rights of podcasting technology. And they've been going around for the last number of years extracting money quietly, because most people don't fight it or publicly announce it. They just pay them off. And they've been extracting money from people for doing things like podcasting. Now, if you know anything about podcasting, this is literally something anybody can do if you have a computer and an internet connection. And you do it for free in the sense that nobody's going to charge you to put their, iTunes doesn't charge you, Stitcher doesn't charge you. I mean, aside from the cost of putting your own little show and podcast together, it's not like a radio show where you have to acquire a license and you're bound by certain FCC regulations and you're working within the airwaves. You're on the internet, a supposed free medium that allows anybody to empower themselves. And these patent trolls are basically saying they own the right to podcast, meaning the right to syndicate an RSS feed, to syndicate and sync up recordings. So if you're listening to me on wherever you're listening, whether it's from my webpage or Spreaker, iTunes, or SoundCloud, wherever you're listening to me on, you're listening in some type of podcast form. So what these patent trolls have the right to do is sue you or try to make you pay them. Well, Adam Carolla, being one of the largest podcasts and most popular, is standing up against them and is putting up over $1 million in legal fees to fight this battle. And in a sense, by fighting it and winning, it ensures the freedom for not only our show, but for all other shows that want to exist and all other people that want to be out there and have their say in the world of media. So we supported them as a show. We donated money, and you can find it at fundanything.com/patent troll, and you can donate any amount of money from $5 all the way on up, and you'll get different rewards. But by doing so, you're not just ensuring the continued listening pleasure and experience of my voice, of this show, but in a very connected way of every show. Because as much as I listen to podcasts and you listen to podcasts and we all engage in this kind of in a quasi-free manner. I mean, some of them have advertisers and sponsors that support it, and people sometimes pay for special content. But in a sense, it's free. It's free for you. It's free for me to be a medium channel. I don't have to purchase a license from the government to do this. They can't control what I say. They can't stop anybody outside of the realm of really having access to internet from providing a channel of communication to speak to the world and create your own audience and your own topic and your own theme, whatever you want to talk about. And although that's liberating, it's also very scary for those in power who have, for over a century, I guess now, controlled the airwaves, controlled them on our behalf as the people. So the government, the FCC, they control the airwaves on our behalf. So they say this is a public domain, kind of like when your water and electricity comes into your home and phone lines, what it used to be before. They say this is such a public domain that everybody engages in and everybody has a right to it, that as the government, we're going to control it and make sure it's regulated and kind of dealt in a fair, open access way. So for many years from the beginning, you would have a license and a certain frequency, and you would be obligated to cover so much content and diversity with news. And then over the years, as channels became more omnious, where basically everywhere you go, there's a platform, whether it's internet or airwaves or TV, there's a way to get media. Now it's become basically, there's still licenses of airwaves, but they're becoming less valuable because people are putting more of their value in the internet. So the internet being this kind of open and free source that I can put out my message without having to apply for a license, and you can consume it without ever having to, I guess kind of as long as you have an internet connection. So as long as the internet's free, we can communicate in this free manner. Well, the patent trolls, by saying they own the right to podcasting and you either pay them or you stop podcasting, is kind of like somebody saying they own the right to the airwaves or the TV or the radio or a newspaper. They own the right to this method of communication. So unfortunately, litigation is so expensive that at this point, Adam Carolla is stepping forward and putting together this crowdfunding campaign. It's kind of like a hero for the rest of all of our podcast community and listeners and society, because he's saying he's going to figure out a way to pull together a couple $1 million, which is ridiculous that it costs that much to fight or argue a case such as this. But he's going to pull that together on our behalf, and he's going to go to battle, and he's going to win, and that will set the precedent for all of us to continue to do what we're doing. So as long as I don't have to ask you for money, and there's companies out there that want to use my platform to message their message to the audience, and they're going to pay me for that, and we can all consume it in a semi-open, free, and unabridged manner, we're engaging in freedom and democracy. And that's why we donate it as a company, and that's why we think you should too. So I'm going to play you just his crowdfunding campaign video so you can hear what it's all about, and then make the decision on your own. Take a listen.
Hi, I'm small business owner Adam Carolla. I'm standing in my studio. I built this studio. Actually, we all kind of built this studio because you guys supported me and my podcast, and we started a nice, small business with a handful of friendly employees who aim to please. Unfortunately, they're guys called patent trolls. What do? Honestly, I still don't know. They buy up patents, and then they use them to get money out of businesses. And in this case, a podcast, a small podcast. Well, normally people settle up with these guys because it's so expensive to fight these guys in court. Well, guess what? We're going to circle the wagons, band together, and come out throwing punches. Here's my plan. We all band together, all the podcasts, because remember, if I go down, well, then your favorite podcast is going down next, and we're going to all fall like dominoes. But if we all unify and stand and fight together, we can beat the trolls. But we can't do it alone. We need your support. Go to fundanything.com/patent troll. Let's smash the trolls.
Well, there you go. Enough information to really make your own decision on if you want to support him or support our show. Just by listening, you're already giving us support. So please share it with your friend, share it with your mom, Everybody needs to know about this show and also about how to save podcasting in general. All right, enough of that. That's all the news you need to know this week. And that was the news. Everything you need to know this week, all cannabis related. This week's show is brought to you by HMO Plus for all your growing needs. Visit them at www.hmoplus.com.
67685.
Hi, my name is Carrie. I have a funny story. 1972, my first husband and I were driving around with some friends, and we were smoking a joint. And I wasn't used to smoking weed at the time. I was a new addict. My husband handed me a joint from the front seat, and I thought he was passing me his cigarette because we shared a cigarette often. And he passed me a joint, and I took a hit off of it and threw it out the window. Oh, shoot, man, I just thought it was a cigarette that he had passed me. My bad. But it was pretty funny.
He was dead. He never lived. He died, seeking a call. Heard the warning, seeking the cause, 'cause he heard the crying of the hungry ghetto children. Heard the tractor paving the routes to new prison. Seeking the cause, seeking a cause. He was dead on arrival, he never lived. Uptown, downtown, cross town, body found all over town. Seeking the cause, seeking the cause. Thinking the cause was $75 and get a shoe. Thinking the cause was selling wacky weed and Chiva Chew. He died seeking the cause, and the cause died. Seeking him, and the cause died. Seeking him. Wanted to be on TV. Wanted a silk suit. He wanted the cause like the World Series. Oh, he wanted, and he wanted to want more once, but he never gave. Oh, he never gave. He never gave love to children. Never gave his heart and soul to his people. Because he was busy seeking the cause, busy perfecting his anthem, busy perfecting his people. The police see her speech. Downtown, uptown, crosstown, body found all over town. By the time I was 17, I had successfully set in place a set of events that would affect pretty much the rest of my life. I didn't attend my high school graduation, but I did receive a diploma, one of those miniature-sized ones. The title across the top read, Southwest Open High School. For many, not having an accredited high school diploma would be a barrier to prevent them from finding a decent job. I didn't care. For me, it was actually an accomplishment. I didn't attend my graduation because I was sent out of state, I guess, or... I mean, I was pretty much sent to juvenile jail. I spent my 18th birthday away from home in a facility, working through what was called behavioral rehabilitation. It was actually a good cornerstone to working in the corporate world and being a manager. I often think about those times, the nights spending on Fort Logan campus. So here I was, going into the world, young, 18, out into the public on my own, with a basic high school education and a long list of criminal records as a juvenile. So as expected, the next few years didn't bring much opportunity. And success, well, it was just one of those things I would think about and imagine. I was a standard McDonald's employee, one more item to erode at my self-confidence and opportunities. But not the last. By the time I was 26, I had filed for bankruptcy, and was a fugitive living in Mexico. Not even as exciting as it sounds. I had a DUI and basically skipped out of my probation because my wife was pregnant in another country and didn't come back to the court date. But it always sounds exciting to say fugitive. It was at this point when I had a revelation, a thought. Meeting various people from other cultures and perspectives, having conversations in another language, often makes you think of things you would have never thought of. I didn't know it at the time, but it was this basic idea, this introduction into public life management, this public profile. Learning about how to change yourself externally to change yourself internally. You see, the person I was in high school, the teenager, the troublemaker, whatever name and title you could put to me, whatever track I was on, was drastically changed when my life and perspectives were drastically changed. When I was able to confront myself and others with the basic questions, the ones that make you uncomfortable, the ones where you have to talk about yourself, your experience, your education, your past. Having to admit to others what you've done and who you were, and plead for mercy to move forward into the future. When I came back to the States from a 5-year stretch in Mexico, I was faced with all the same demons I was faced with before leaving, or as the judge put it, skipping out. So I had to confront them. I had to take my 3-year-old daughter and my wife to the courthouse with me as I turned myself in. I had to have them come to court with me, and I had them there when by the powers that be graced me with an incompetent DA who was highly unprepared, which allowed me to instantly start my life over again in the States. I didn't take it for granted not having an education as a teenager because I just didn't know what it would provide. But as I worked through my bachelor's and then eventually my master's, as I worked through sub-degrees of certifications, continual learning, making connections with people who you would never normally meet in an average day of friends and local pals at the corner 7-Eleven and grocery store. Because today I stand before people as a father, married, small assets, steady job, and still the dream of a youngster. I feel the fire to move forward. When I put this show together, it was basically a tipping point in my life that said, I'm not going to wait anymore. And that tipping point came just a few years ago when my brother, only 2 years older than me, passed away from leukemia. A struggle he dealt with, but a struggle that brought him into a culture, a cannabis culture, and a lifestyle that we both had in common and was probably the only thing we ever connected on. I mean, if you've ever had a brother or sister that you felt close to, or just the reverse, that you've never felt close to and fought all the time, well, either or, here's one that really this was probably the only thing we had in common. And we both took the same passion and interest and learning into it, that when he passed, I decided, almost in his memory and my intolerance for waiting, I was going to put it together. And it just clicked. It just clicked. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to have a stoner show. That wasn't what I was about. It wasn't what he was about. But I knew I had to have something that was still rooted in who I was. And previously I had started companies and my own little businesses, like the Opportunity Group, one where I was focusing on crowdfunding, trying to raise money for individuals who felt like they had no other opportunities. They weren't educated, they weren't well skilled, but they were looking to start over in life. And crowdfunding was this new and emerging thing throughout 2012 that came into law and gave the ability for people to ask strangers for money and then to use that money to pursue their own personal passions. And it was through that business when I realized, well, here's one that can easily be related to Colorado with this new emerging economy in cannabis. Because it's the same idea. And this is why every show, at the beginning of the show and throughout the show and in my interviews and conversations with people, there's always this underlining thread, this topic of, are you an entrepreneur in this industry of choice, or are you here out of lack of other opportunities? And for most of them, it's both, actually. Most people who are in this industry love it, and they couldn't think of doing anything different. But they're also here because this is the end of the line. The bank's not hiring, and the Burger King is not paying, and the Conoco down the street wants to do too many background checks and UAs. So where are you left in life? Where are you left? Well, now in Colorado, we have the ability to not just have a core cannabis industry of growing and selling, but now we have the ability to create hundreds and thousands of businesses, micro businesses, sub businesses, all around this industry. And if just a handful of people in each of those are employed, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of individuals being employed. So the transition was very natural for me to go from this previous business idea of the opportunity group helping the unemployable become self-employed to basically working that into the cannabis industry of taking people who are unemployable and being forced to be self-employed, and now in this very interesting industry that is going to take the world by attention. The world is looking at us saying, what is going on here in Colorado? So we need to show them the professional side of what it means to be a cannabis industry. So the transition was natural. The only thing that was left was the channel of communication. I knew I needed to communicate somehow with the audience out there, with people out there who are looking for this information. And the natural answer was a podcast. Ever since I was a kid, radio has pretty much been my second brother, my friend, the thing that was always in my ear. Always having your station, whether it was music and then eventually talk stations where you become almost unknown friends with the host and you know them intimately. I consume probably 20 hours a week of podcasting on my own. I put almost 20, 30 hours into this show. I spend most of my life based around podcasting. So this was the natural channel of communication through the internet. So it came together that the Cannabis Community Project is this blend of media and business and entrepreneurship and cannabis. Is the non-traditional, the musician that I'm always seeking with the musicpreneur episodes, is the same as the grower, is the same as the dispensary worker or owner, is the same as the glass blower. People who have to find their own niche in society because in the general domain, they're being rejected. They're not being accepted. They can't find their own opportunity, their role. Well, there it is. That's a little insight from me to you about what this is all about, this community right here. And if you want to be part of this community, you can support us in any way that you want. You can listen to us every week because I see those numbers. I see them on the analytics. So when you're listening, I know about it. You can leave comments and likes and share with your friend, family. You can call in and participate in Cannafessions. You can come on the air and talk about your business or your idea or your thoughts about cannabis. This is your community. I'm just here as the portal. And this is the way we're going to make the world change. By going out there and doing it, and joining together and making the media channels connect and making those media channels allow the businesses to communicate with the audiences. And together we will all be part of this community, the cannabis community.
And the cause is in front of him. And the cause is in his skin. And the cause is in his speech. And the cause is in his blood. But he died seeking the cause, seeking the cause. He died deaf, dumb, and blind. And he died and he never found his cause. Cause you see, he never knew, he never knew that he was the cause. seeking him in the cause of God, seeking him. Downtown, uptown, midtown, crosstown, might have found all over town. Seeking the call, seeking the call.
There you have it, the first episode guest list. Well, I guess if you consider me a guest. That was me, myself, and I. It doesn't get much more personal than that. I mean, obviously, I didn't lay it all out for you, and there's still some secrets I'm holding. But that's pretty much me. That's what we're about. Well, if you like the community, tell a friend, bring a friend. Let's make it bigger. Let's make it stronger. Let's support each other. Let's make this the new future. Rather than what they used to tell us, how cannabis would be no future, let's ironically turn that around and make cannabis the only future. You got more ideas, you got more stuff to say, contact me. You can call me. I do have a phone number. I'm going to give it out once, so pay attention. 970-316-2505. That's if you want to personally send me a text or give me a call, leave me a voicemail. If you want to participate in Cannafessions, also find me on Facebook, CannabisCommunityProject.com. We're also on Kush Common, Google Plus, all under the same name. Personally, you can find me if you know where to look and if you know what my name is. Other than that, thanks again to all of our sponsors, HMO Plus for all your growing needs, Dairy Berry Studios for audio, mixing, and recording, and all of our other sub-sponsors, Tau Media, podcasting and media production, and True Diligence, PI, background checks, and public documents. Thanks again. We'll see you next week with a new guest. Oh, man, I got a great show lined up. I'm going down to Colorado Springs next week. I'm going to go to the Vape Lounge, the Speakeasy. We're going to talk to some more patients. We got so much going on. See you next week.
If your money spent, tell friends that's me, knock it down.